this is Trisha Funk. She is amazing, an absolute expert with finance, especially when it comes to small business, but also like personal finance as well. So Trisha, she has worked in multiple areas. She was formerly running the WBC, or the Women's Business Center. So she was doing that for a while. She's now working with SBA, so that is the Small Business Administration, technically out of Sacramento, is that correct? But she works up here. Like she's responsible for both marketing and then also relationship building up here in the North State, the true Northern California. So anyways, thank you. So Trisha has done numerous things, has over 2 decades within the financial sphere, and happy tax day to you, because now that is basically done. Woohoo! She files people's taxes and things of that nature, which is why I say this. Exactly. You wear many hats, many hats.
I'm a 4th generation entrepreneur. So I have grown up in family businesses. Like I get all of the process. I founded nonprofits. And so if anyone would have asked me, would you consider working for the federal government? I would have been like, that's the funniest question you could ever ask me. Because I have a perception of what the federal government does, as we all do. What's the most feared, wait, we're recording this.
That is accurate.
Where,
We edit it,
if
so.
we edit this. What's the most feared words in the English language?
IRS, I like that.
Happy Tax Day! No.
Right.
We're with the government and we're here to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those things. So the opportunity kind of started for me almost 6 years ago now, where I was asked if I would throw my hat in the ring to be the director of one of the women's business centers. And I said no the first 3 times. And then finally also involved a glass of wine, where I got cornered at an event and they said, Trish, please consider applying for the position of director of the Women's Business Center at Jedi, which covers Siskiyou, Shasta, Trinity, Humboldt counties. I went, all right, that sounds like a good idea. They talked me into all the good reasons why. Fast forward to where we're at today. The SBA is actually the only mission-driven department of the federal government. So their whole purpose for being is to support small business owners, entrepreneurs and small business owners with growth and development, startup growth, development, exporting, all of those resources and things that it needs to do. So where I love for-profit business, I'm a big fan of for-profit business. I'm a big fan of making money, and I still to this day have my own for-profit business, which is why we say Happy Tax Day, because I have Finances with Funk that's financial capacity building, also includes tax planning and preparation. I also think there's so much value in public service. And what I get to do with the SBA every single day is literally public service, is literally supporting all of you as entrepreneurs and small business owners with the tools and resources that you need to grow, scale, build, all of those things. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about, I'm from this Northern California, this real Northern California area, even though I technically am out of the Citrus Heights office, where we serve 22 counties. So San Joaquin Valley all the way to Oregon border, Nevada border, so all the inland counties. I'm really passionate about making sure that business owners know that the resources exist that can support them, because they're federally funded and they're state funded, which means they're taxpayer funded. You're already paying your taxes. How many of you had to pay taxes this year? Huh. Yeah. No. Some of you may not have. Some of you may not have had to pay taxes this year because you haven't done taxes this year, and that's okay too. I'm not asking any of those questions. I'm not asking any of those questions. But so the SBA is the only department of the federal government, only agency of the federal government that's actually mission driven, which I think is really, really important. So SBA from a loan perspective, it's kind of a anomaly, right? Because everybody says, like, I want an SBA loan. SBA does not actually do any direct funding outside of disaster services. So during COVID, you all heard about the EIDL loan program. Any other time there's a federally declared disaster, the SBA opens up economic injury disaster loan programs that allow businesses to be supported by really super low interest, very long-term loans to be able to access capital to kind of sustain the business through that natural disaster, whatever the case may be. Other than that, outside of disaster services, the SBA does not lend money. So what the SBA does is they actually guarantee loans. So the goal with SBA loans is that we ensure that those business owners that aren't able to access capital in other ways or aren't able to access capital to the amount that they want for the terms that they want, that the SBA can be that go-between to kind of bridge the gap between that lending institution, that bank, and what the business owner's actual needs are. So just to give kind of an overview before I get into specific programs, think about it from a banker's perspective. So I run the lending portfolio for Cornerstone Community Bank. I do not, just hypothetically.
Just an example.
Just as an example. I run the portfolio for Cornerstone Community Bank, and you come to me and say, I want $1 million loan to build this really brilliant business idea that I have. It's gonna be so much fun. Just trust me, it's gonna be really fun. You're gonna like it. People are gonna like it. And Cornerstone Community Bank, the head of lending operations is like, that's really nice. I actually do think that sounds really fun, but I also have a board of directors that's not gonna let me lend you $1 million for that really fun business idea. Because you and I are kind of weirdos, and we think it's fun, but maybe not everybody is actually gonna pay for that service, right? The federal government will come in and say, okay, Cornerstone Community Bank, you're not willing to take that risk on that business owner. We're gonna come in and go up to 90% and guarantee that loan. So where does the risk then go for Cornerstone Community Bank? If the federal government's saying, that business, it's a great idea, we like it, they're not here in a year from now or 2 years from now, we still have to be ensured that we're gonna get our money. So that's what the SBA does from the majority of the perspective of actual funding, is they do loan guarantees up to 90% depending on the program specifically. Any questions about that? Oh, you wanna do questions then? Listen.
Makes sense.
If you have questions along the way, Katie didn't tell me I could do this, but I have a microphone, so I'm gonna.
It's your show.
So I'm gonna do this. So if you have questions along the way, I'm very conversational. Like just interrupt me. Just like pop in there because maybe it's just me, but if I don't ask the question when I have the question, then I forget the question. Yep. So interrupt as you need to. So our main programs are the SBA 7A program. And so the way that works is you go directly to a banking or lending institution. So you go to your Cornerstone Community Bank and you apply for an SBA loan. There's two different types of lenders that you can access SBA loans through. There's direct lenders who have the ability to do some of their own underwriting. So they don't have to come directly to us. They don't have to send the whole portfolio over to the SBA to be able to underwrite the loan, which means it's a quicker process for you specifically. They also, when you have a direct lender or you have an express lender, they also have the ability to have those real conversations with you, right? So maybe their banking or lending institution has a certain standard that is a certain credit score or something like that, but they can have a real conversation with you that's not just this packet of information that's coming across the table. So there's those, and then there's
Could you repeat what that is again?
What? Express lenders. So there's SBA express lenders, and then there's not express lenders, meaning that they will still do SBA loans, but they have to actually send them to us to be able to do the underwriting for that loan. That's going to take a little bit longer of a process because they can't do their own underwriting, right? So those express lenders are kind of like the lenders, not that we don't endorse any one lender over another lender, but they're ones that we have worked with long enough. They have the established history of being able to make good decisions, and their underwriting process and their record retention and all of those pieces of the puzzle, right, are good enough that we allow them to do a lot of the decision-making process for them. So 7A loans. 7A loans are the identical to any business loan out there that you would maybe go to try to access capital for your business. So they do operating expenses, they do equipment purchases, they do overhead, they do the entire gamut of what you would be thinking of when you're trying to access a traditional business loan. Then we have the 504 program. The 504 program is a program that is used exclusively to purchase real estate and large equipment. So those are kind of the two separate main programs that we do. The 504 program you access through a CDC. So it's not just your run-of-the-mill average bank that you would walk into and get like a real estate, a SBA real estate loan. Then we have the microloan program. So microloan program is truly the program that was designed to support kind of startup businesses up to $50,000. And there is definitely lenders in this area that do SBA microloan programs. We're doing, with the Women's Business Center next week, we're doing a webinar that actually brings a panel of experts that actually lend in this area for the microloan program. So that is designed more for like the startup phase. And then there also is specific programs that are focused on those businesses, small businesses that are interested in exporting. Because we know that for banks and traditional lenders, it's a higher risk opportunity to invest in someone that just needs to access additional inventory, that needs to be able to cover purchase orders and stuff like that if you're really trying to get into the exporting field. And that's a daunting task. It's a daunting process to go like, okay, I'm manufacturing in the US, but then to be able to, you know, go scale to that next level and be able to truly export well, right, is a whole different process. So there is a program also for that focuses on exporting.
So it's primarily four. So you have your 7A, you have your 504, you have your microloans, and then that exporting one, correct?
Right.
Nice. So what about SBIR? So that would be anyways, so more so like looking at, say, startups that are going on that tech side or potentially healthcare, things of that nature. We have the SBIR program, which is somewhat akin to the SBA. Can you speak on the SBIRs at all?
So the SBA does run the SBIR program. Who has heard of the SBIR program? Small Business Innovation Research. These are grants, they're not loans. So SBR and STTR.
Just say it fast. We'll be like, yeah.
Just
STTR.
There's like
we love our letters.
There's a 12-month training program when you join the federal government that is all about acronyms. And they just make them up for no reason whatsoever. When you're like, you know, you could just call it by its name. No? Oh, okay. No. That's cool. So in short, SBIR is a grant program that funds businesses who have innovation and technology-based ideas to support the research and development phase of that business development. So every federal agency, is there 12? 11 agencies that participate in the SBIR program, from Department of Defense to Department of Education, USDA, all of that, where Alex is part of with the Shasta Cascade SBDC. They actually have the iHub, State of California Innovation for Ag Tech. You owe me $5 now. I'll send it to Quentin. I'm going to send him a bill.
There you go.
So, no, Now I forgot what I was going to say. SBIR.
SBIR. Great.
So essentially what the SBIR program is for is it funds the research and development and then into like the prototype development phase of something that the federal government would be interested in purchasing. So they know that it's not just the big, massive research organizations, nonprofit research organizations that have brilliant ideas. They know that it's those of us entrepreneurs in the room that have the solution to what their future needs are. So what that SBIR program, it's actually been around since 1982. This is not a new program, and it has continued to be reauthorized, it's continued to be redeveloped and added to, because there's so much value in really pulling from that small business community of who has the next brilliant idea that's actually going to solve our next problem. And so it truly is research and development, though. This is not a grant that's going to fund production. So there's 3 phases of the SBIR program. Phase 1 truly is like that R&D phase. And it's like a 6 to 12 month process that you can go online, you can see all the different bids that are out there from different government agencies of what they're looking for in terms of technology, see where yours kind of fits in what they're looking for, apply for that SBIR program, and then that first level of funding is up to, let's see, it's 2023. It's like just over 200,000 is what that initial grant is. That's going to cover that 6 month to 12 month period of time. Doesn't mean you can't subcontract. If you have, if you are accepted into that, first year, phase 1, you can actually subcontract. I think it's 33%. If I just made that up, you have to edit that part out.
Put an asterisk in there.
33-ish% that phase 1 covers, and then phase 2 is that prototype development. So it can be up to the next 24 months is that prototype development. And that prototype development is up to, I think it's just over 2 million right now.
That sounds right. We have someone who's working with the Department of Transportation right now with doing that, and I know they're working on getting a big chunk.
Yeah. So it started at 250 a couple years ago, and it's inflation adjusted every year. So I think it's just over 3 million now to get you in that next 2 phases. And then phase 3 is commercialization. So that is like putting your product to market, ideally with the goal that now you have created a product that the government can now start buying from you. Like
and all of this is non-diluted.
100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that means they don't own anything of your company. So
right.
That money is given to you. That is a grant.
Right. So the STTR does require contracts. So STTR, the different did I add 3 more T's in there? I feel like I did.
Like Mississippi, just keep adding letters. It figures itself out.
The difference between those 2 kind of programs is that they partner with a nonprofit research organization. So you're partnering with major already research industry leaders to be able to do that. They do require under that there's like a technology agreement of under the development of this, what is owned by me as the small business owner versus, and small business owner, I mean, is still like up to 500 employees. Like we're talking about large companies, not just me like sitting in my garage deciding this business. Doesn't mean it can't be, right? But, So there is that agreement with that. The other thing is that with SBIR, that principal innovator, that principal researcher has to be employed by the small business, whereas with the SCTR, they can be employed by the research organization. So there's, a few nuances to the 2 different programs, and less federal agencies that are participating in the SCTR program than the SBIR program.
I think that those programs are so neat, and we've known a few people who've benefited greatly from them, and it's really cool. So if that's an appropriate choice for your business, it is a very, very interesting option. So
It's also really interesting, like the projects that are out there.
Oh
like
my
people
gosh,
think
yes.
like, oh, contracting with the federal government, like I've got to be doing this like weird special thing. If you like look at what like bids are out there right now of what they're looking for, you're like, oh, like they're looking for someone to do. Like I know how to do that. Like
exactly. It's awesome. So jumping back,
SBIR.gov. I'll send it to you, Yolanda.
there you go. So jumping back into the SBA loan side of things, I know that it's obviously a flexible answer here, but like how does that compare to traditional loans normally, as in the sense of interest rates, what's required for application, things of that nature? So what's the like high level of a little bit more detailed within those guys?
That's a great question. So terms generally are going to be pretty close to identical to what you would get from a traditional business loan. There's no like special interest rate. Like you don't get like discounted.
You're telling me they don't have a
2%.
secret interest rate in the back
There's
that I can't?
secret. There's no. Jeez. What was that movie? Da Vinci Code. There's no Da Vinci Code to lending with the federal government. No. So terms pretty much are going to be identical to what you would get with a traditional business loan. The thing that ends up being more favorable a lot of times for business owners that makes them actually be able to access that capital is usually more down payment, right? So if the SBA is coming in, the federal government's coming in and backing a certain percentage of that loan, they're not going to have quite as much skin in the game. You still have to have skin in the game. The other thing is going to be some flexibility when it comes to repayment terms and some stuff like that. That's kind of outside the scope of what normal banks' traditional lending is. This is a for benefit. So the federal government isn't going to come in and do a loan guarantee, do a 7A loan, or a 504 loan if you have zero barriers to accessing capital. The whole point is, and I've heard this so many times, like I was literally sitting at friends of mine house when I was staying with them just to visit for a few days, and they're like, my great friend is like complaining all over the place about the SBA. Like, you know, like I found them not to be helpful. He's a veteran. He's like, I'm a veteran. I couldn't get an SBA loan. I couldn't do this. I'm like, you're a physician who's been in practice for like 40 years. Like, you don't need an SBA loan to go buy a building, dude. Like, you're fine. Like, that's not what it was designed for. So, I mean, it is with the intent of the organization is to help those that may not be able to access capital be able to access capital to grow their business, right? If you can grow your business other places, then you're not going to qualify to be able to take a 7A loan.
So are there very like specific qualifications, or like what? Tell us about maybe some businesses. Again, you don't have to say personal information about them by any means, but like some businesses that you've seen that have been like, oh man, they were an excellent fit, and because of the SBA, they were able to do XYZ with their business. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah. If you're doing something that is federally illegal,
well,
the federal government will not give you money to grow that.
So that's the first red flag.
business.
Don't do that. Okay.
Gambling, so that is gambling in our areas, right? What impacts so many business owners is gambling, cannabis, right? Federally, at least at this point in time, in this day and age, that is still federally illegal, so we cannot do loans to certain industries. So the big three are sex industry, cannabis, and gambling. There's probably some others but those are the ones that really matter, right?
For sure.
So are there financial, qualifications? Like, do you have to be below a certain bracket?
Oh, yeah. Revenue's like 24 million.
Below 24 million?
Under 500 employees. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to be what's deemed federally a small business. It does change slightly based on the industry that you're in and niche that you're in. So there are some differences in that, but like for 90% of us in this room, like there's no space where that we understand that as an actual small business. So with the disaster program, with the EIDL disaster programs, there has to be a federally declared disaster in your area. So like the most recent one, I don't know, there was mudslides or something like that.
Probably.
Most recently. So the president comes in and claims this county, these 3 counties, and any contiguous counties is a natural disaster area. Then we can the SBA can open up the EIDL program to businesses in those counties that qualify. For traditional regular 7A and 504 programs, those have nothing to do with disasters. So those programs are open to anyone pretty much at any time, and the startup. There really is no time period that a business has to be in place in order to necessarily qualify for the programs, and it's more depictive of what each lending institution's underwriting requirements are. So CDC Small Business Finance Company that does our SBA microloan program, they have a very different underwriting perspective and underwriting process than, let's say, one of the traditional banks, right? One of the traditional national banks. So, but there's not like this hard and fast age requirement. I would say that it's reasonable to expect that you need at minimum, even with some of kind of our alternative lenders that do our microloan program, 6 months under your belt. But if you have age of experience, so you're branching off from this other company that you've worked with for the last 10 years and you're starting your own, and you have that experience in the industry, and especially if you were the right-hand man that did or right-hand woman that did managed the main business operations, then they can count that experience as in place of business, especially with some of our other funders that can do some different underwriting.
So it sounds like approximately 6 months, a little bit of a caveat there, under 24 million in revenue and under 500 employees. Those are the primary criteria to qualify for a loan, right?
And must be U.S. based. So must be U.S. owned, must be U.S. based, especially, and that includes the SBIR. Like you have to be doing business in the United States. The other thing that I would say is from that like small business owned, there's this one, and we can talk about it if there's time to kind of talk about government contracting and DBE certifications and stuff like that, is I'm gonna apply to be this DBE certified or this small business certified business or organization or entity, but really not just on paper I'm the owner, but if on paper I'm the owner, but I actually have zero ability to make any business operations, then I'm not truly 51% DBE certified, or I'm not 51% small business owned or something like that. If there is some other investor that's part of that process. I will say, I'm kind of jumping all over the place right now, but this is bringing up ideas.
Right?
In the SBIR program, like you actually can have some of those entities can be actually owned by venture capitalists. So they don't have to just be like one independent individual that owns that.
Does personal credit or business credit play a role into your ability to get an SBA loan?
I would say business credit, not necessarily. A lot of your startups, especially if you're in the first couple of years, you haven't gone through the process of actually establishing credit in the business's name. It's always a good idea, and it's very simple to do. And it's like where you go and bank and have your business checking account, also do a business credit card. Whether you use it to put like a order of business cards on once every quarter or something like that, doesn't mean you have to like utilize it and rack up a whole bunch of debt on it specifically. But it's really simple to do. You also have to have your own EIN number to be able to do that. So you can't establish independent credit under your business's name if you don't have an EIN that's separate from your personal. And a lot of, especially, I don't know how many in this room are sole prop versus C Corp versus LLC, all of that kind of stuff. A lot of people are under the misconception that as even a sole prop that you can't get your own EIN number. That's a federal identification number that you can start doing some of that kind of stuff, like business building, business credit building, and all that kind of stuff. So your credit is going to be dependent on your personal credit is absolutely, especially for startups, is absolutely one of the most important pieces to being able to access capital for your business, because there is very few lenders out there that are not going to require a personal guarantee. So that means like I am starting this business on the side. I also, kind of continue to work part-time or full-time, and I'm building this. I need to be able to show that if I borrow $150,000 from you to grow this business on the side, that even if my business doesn't produce revenue for the next 12 months, that I can still repay you, right? At the end of the day, that's all the bank cares about.
Absolutely.
That's all I would personally care about. If I loaned you $150,000, is like your idea may be cool, but am I still going to get my $150,000 back?
Yeah.
And the 5% interest that like you told me you were going to pay me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But credit can be negotiable based on what lending institution you're going with. So some of the lenders will definitely be more like, okay, tell me the story. Like, what's going on with this? They don't have a set minimum credit score because they want to know like what went into the process of what impacted this score. And if the other pieces of the puzzle look really, really strong, if you've shown a business plan that shows that you understand your market, that you understand your industry, that you understand like how you're going to actually make money, like then they can make an underwriting decision based on that information.
Totally. So are there any like particular either common pitfalls that you've seen when people are trying to apply for SBA loans in particular?
I wouldn't say just SBA loans. Not understanding your ask. So when you walk into a banker's office and you say, I need $200,000 because I'm going to grow this business, and they go, what are you going to do with $200,000? And you're like, well,
Stuff.
I think, right. I'm going to I'm going to buy some stuff with it, and I'm going to buy some stuff with it. So not understanding your financial projections, number one, not having like a business plan. Like I am not an advocate for you need to have a 27-page business plan if you are bootstrapping your business. You still need a guiding star. You still need like that scope of like where are we going and how are we making financial decisions, how are we making operational decisions on where we're going, like what's the goal, how are we going, who are we talking to, who we're selling to, instead of like going to every other training. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you're just a fan of going to every training every week to learn everything so you don't have to actually implement. Because we all have been in that phase of our business growth, right? Like, I just need to learn more. If I learn more, then I know what to do. And then it's just the excuse
Just
of
doing stuff.
learning, so we never
Yeah.
have to actually do the thing, right? So if you're not trying to access capital, like you don't need a 27-page business plan. But if you are truly trying to access capital, you have to have, regardless of who it is or where it is, Like, you have to have a business plan that accurately shows that you understand your industry, that you understand where you're going, that you understand your competition, that you have developed financial projections that actually make sense and are true.
I thought they were all hockey sticks. Y'all just
Yeah.
straight up, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly
Yeah.
how many financial projections come in. And then the banker is going to ask you, like, what went into these numbers? And you're like,
Stuff.
stuff. The stuff that I was
That
going
is
to
my
buy.
answer for things. Stuff.
I would say that's a huge one. Like, that's a huge downfall. And it's frustrating because, like, you guys all have an amazing idea, or you have an amazing business that you've already built. And then it becomes really defeating to have someone say no. And the problem is, for many small businesses, and like as we're talking about, like, what's the biggest mistake? The problem is not that you can't be successful. If you were to get that $150,000, that you can't be successful. The problem is that you haven't been able to actually tell your story correctly and clearly enough that allows the other person sitting on the other side of the desk the ability to see it with you and say yes, right? So that's one big thing that I see for a lot of people, is just not having that kind of clarity around their ask and like that business financials. The other thing that I would say is that they've waited too long to try to access capital. So if you have started your company by draining your savings and then racking up your credit cards, like, you've put yourself in a position that makes it really, really difficult for, like, when you can't personally show that I can take care of my four walls, makes it really hard for a lending institution to say, like, oh, I think it's fine. Like, I'm going to give you another $150,000. You just told me your mortgage is 2 months behind, and you have maxed out every single one of your own credit cards. So there's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that are kind of risk or debt averse, and I get it. I've been in the finance industry for 24 years now, and a big piece of what I do is kind of that, like, let's get you out of debt so you can be investing. And let's get you doing some financial strategy to really get you to that next goal. And you can't do that with consumer debt. So I'm huge on that. I refuse to carry it myself. But at the same time, it is really important to be able to find trusted advisors and mentors that can help you evaluate, like, when is the right point to actually access capital from a lending perspective that then safeguards all the rest of the pie. Right? So we truly can get to that next level of growth. Yeah.
Are there maybe places in town that
Do you have a question on
mentors?
that for me? Can we just skip to that question?
Oh, yeah.
If there's a question.
There's not a question on, but
Well,
you go
now
for
there's a
it.
question.
Now there's a question.
Yeah, so the SBA funds many resource partners whose entire job is to do one-on-one mentorship training. Alex, I'm so glad he showed up. I've got one person in the room of my peeps. So the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, is 2 blocks away. They have resources, not just locally, but they're part of the NorCal network of small business development centers. They have amazing experts in, like, every niche that you can possibly find that can do, whether it's business valuation because you're trying to buy a business or sell a business, or succession planning, or all the things that seem really outside the scope of, like, a generalist, right? And they also have generalists. Like, look, I just need to sit across the desk from somebody and have a conversation with, like, where's my business going at the next piece of the puzzle? All of their resources are free to all of you because they're taxpayer funded. So small business development centers, the women's business centers, which the women's business centers were named women's business centers by the federal government, but they can't discriminate and only serve women. Don't ask. So
California, it doesn't matter anymore.
that's true. But they have an amazing team of advisors that can support with and are part of the California network of women's business centers. In this area, we now have an actual chapter of the VBOX, which are the Veterans Business Outreach Centers that do services. They're the only agency that actually does only serve a very target market. So the VBOX do only serve veterans and veteran families, or can be active duty, doesn't have to be retired, but do serve military and military families only. But we do have a chapter and a kind of a satellite office that's here in Redding now locally. And then the fourth organization that is directly under the SBA, that is SBA funded. They're also funded by the state of California out of GoBiz. So all of our resource partners are also funded by the governor's office. Is the SCORE mentors. And SCORE mentors, the thing that's amazing about them, besides the fact that, like, I don't know if any of you have used like a NOLO guide to forming your nonprofit corporation in California. Like the SCORE mentors, the SCORE website has 10 billion, that might be a slight exaggeration.
Only slight.
173 billion.
It's been higher.
I know.
Okay.
I had to make it more outlandish, so
Okay,
it
great,
wasn't
great,
like anywhere
good.
close to what the truth is. They have so many resources, templates, all of that kind of stuff. But the other thing that's cool about the SCORE mentors is they have an ability to search by locality, where you can find someone local in your area. But the other thing that's really powerful about them is that you can search by niche. So if you're in a very specific industry, you can actually search by industry, and you can get connected with a mentor from anywhere in the U.S. And they are retired, like, C-level executives. So they are literally, like, have retired, sold their business, transferred out of their business, whatever the case may be. But very heavily vetted mentors that can actually work with you one-on-one through that growth and development. SCORE.org. SCORE. Yep, absolutely. You can buy a business with an SBA loan. And one of the changes to that 7A program that actually I love is that you can buy part of a business. So this used to not be the case. The 7A loan, you couldn't be a partial owner. Now you can buy in at like 20%. So you have you've been a key employee in a business for 15 years, 18 years, and you've been trying to talk to that owner about, like, look, like, I want this. Like, I want to take this to the next level. None of your kids want it. Like you can actually buy in at partial percentages with a 7A loan, and then lead in from that succession planning perspective. So that's a new transition that happened just in the last year. That's amazing with that 7A program specifically.
So could you just give us maybe one or two stories of people who've been, like, super successful going through the SBA, and it's like, oh, they started here, got that loan, now they're here. Then we'll have a few more questions and we'll wrap it up.
There's I can't. Give me an industry.
Let's go with agriculture. Starts with an A, first one that came to mind.
Agriculture. This is how you do so good at that game,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I know, it's
You're
true.
Like A, B, C, D.
Got it.
Absolutely. We have a business who came to the SBA looking just for, like, help and resources, was trying to put together basically like a $7 million project for a tech-based agriculture idea that he had. He had a seller that was willing to he was already in conversation with. Working with him, not just on here's the loan programs that we have, but also here's, like, that mentorship piece. Here's that, how do we make all that work? Also bringing to the table, we work with the state of California in partnership all the time. And the state of California, through their iBank program, actually has very similar loan guarantee programs, and you can participate in both. So it's not like we're over here and the state's over here and other funding sources are over here and other grant sources are over here. So we sat down with them. We brought USDA to the table. We brought GoBiz to the table. We brought us to the table and had that just really innovative conversation of like, okay, what the max funding that maybe SBA can do is this, but we're not just like putting you out there and saying like, now go find the other 5 million that you're looking for, or 4 million that you're looking for. We really worked hard to make sure like, look, these are all the different resources that you can tap into. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about the SBA is that and going back to public service, like we're not like a broker. We're not like a loan broker. We're not just like trying to make a loan. Like what we're trying to do is grow businesses and grow industry and grow economies and communities and all of that kind of stuff. So whatever that looks like for us to be able to sit down and say like, who else do we need at this table to make sure that you can be successful in acquiring that business idea and then putting the manufacturing operations in place. I feel like I can't say too much about like what his tech aspect is, but but yeah, it's so much fun and it's so rewarding to be able to like go like I don't know, but let's see if we can figure it out.
Totally. Anybody else? 2 more questions here. What you got, Matt?
That's a great question. So 504 program does not cover like I want to buy a whole bunch of rentals. I want to buy a whole bunch of rental properties. It is like owner occupied facilities. So I am running my business I need to grow and expand my manufacturing facility. I want to buy this piece of land to be able to do that. So that was literally a 2-hour meeting that I had last week. He was actually a mortgage broker and they're buying a new business. That the new business was a pool service business. And then we wrapped around to he also has started this business has a piece of land that they're trying to do tiny homes on specifically and manufacture the tiny homes and use those for rentals and was really interested in the 504 program for that. And so from that perspective, right, what he was looking for funding for was the cost of goods for manufacturing a product, which is the tiny homes. So 504 program is not going to cover that, right? 7A, potentially, he could be able to maybe access capital under that program to be able to do that because what he's doing is creating a tangible product in the end to be able to do. He's not buying like the warehouse. He's not buying the facilities. He's not buying the 3D printer to be able to, print these cement homes, whatever the case may be. Does that make sense? Does that differentiate? So no residential like real estate, no rental. And same thing with 7A. Like 7A, you can't, like 7A or 504 is not to be able to go buy what is considered residential real estate for rental. Even commercial real estate doesn't mean you can't sublease some of the property. So you buy that manufacturing building for your business or that one building that your offices are going to be out of. You can lease out some of the other extra space, but you have to be owner-occ in a certain percentage of that space.
On the SBIR, if you're going to piggyback off an existing product, how much issue is that? Build a better mousetrap. How much is that going to affect?
So the SBIR is not going to cover any idea that has already been brought to commercialization. So if there is, because it is truly in those first few stages, I'm going to say that the answer to that is going to depend on what the actual contract is, right? So there's going to be rules in place based on what industry you're looking at, what tech you're looking at, what sort of idea you have, and what the end user, what the department is actually looking for. It's a really vague answer. But the one thing that I will say with like that SBIR program, with like any government program, Apex Accelerator, which used to be called PTAC, that really supports people with that government contracting space. They're ready to go to that next level as far as government contracting. Is there are so many tools and resources and training and videos online. So you can go on SBI our website and look at like events coming up, and there is so many different like trainings on the nitty-gritty of the specific program and the nitty-gritty of the specific program for Department of Defense versus Department of Agriculture versus Department of Ed, Health and Human Services, right? So there's just a lot of resources
That's
online.
dynamite. Last question, if you can make it real quick.
Yeah, this is a super quick one. Under which program would getting money for patents or you're doing copyright lawyers, is there a way to get money with that go under 7A?
It's a good question.
It's not SBIR, probably.
It's not SBIR.
Eliminate that.
Could maybe could fall under microloan program depending on what the would definitely fall under 7A program. If the rest of that is depending on what else is going on there, right? Like,
It's not cost of goods, it's not real estate.
yeah, can be intellectual property, can still be considered under that program. But there's a lot of kind of ifs in that answer, right? Like it depends on what else is going on around that, but could potentially maybe be part of like a microloan package, right?
Well, my gosh, we could probably go for like another 2 hours with questions. I haven't even gotten to ask all of mine, but we'll cut it short.
Oh.
You find Trisha afterwards, okay? But thank you so much for imparting so much knowledge. I know I learned a heck of a lot. I was like, why didn't I bring my notepad? This is so good. So thank you so much, Trisha. We
You're welcome.
appreciate it. I say if you have questions, we'll corner you, but we won't make you sign up to do any other work, okay? It's just to corner you to ask questions, all right? So anyway, thank you so much for joining. Again, the WBC is having an event. It's a webinar event next week.
Can I say two things?
Yes.
Yes, next week, WBC microlending, May 1st. Meet resources for your small business, state and federal. So GoBiz and I are doing a webinar on May 1st. I think it's 1 o'clock. 3:30 here. During National Small Business Week, we are hosting an event that is Meet Your Resource Partners. So it will be, yes, I'll say, hi, I'm here with the SBA, but then Alex is going to be able to talk about what the SBDC does. The WBC is going to be able to talk about that. The VBOX is going to talk about that. Local chambers are going to be able to talk about that. Startup Reading, hopefully, is going to be able to talk about like what cool things they do and how they support small businesses. So May 1st in the afternoon, 3:30 to 5:30, we are doing opportunity to just come and just learn how many are local resources that you should be being able to tap into and learn about that. And then Thrive program we are hosting for the first time ever. Thrive is a micro MBA that the SBA puts out and does once a year, every year. And this is the first year that we're doing one out of the Sacramento office. We're doing one in Citrus Heights, and we're also doing one located in Reading. So it's for more established businesses. You have to have been in business at least 2 years. Technically online, the criteria says $250,000 in revenue. It's actually $100,000 in revenue I can approve. I'll be co-facilitating that. It's a 6-month program. And it truly is to at least one employee other than yourself, can be part-time. But it's really designed to like scale your business to that next level. So that Thrive program applications are open right now for that. I'm done.
That was 3. That's okay. That's okay. Since we came up with a 3-way tie with the questions, it all works out. So.
Bill, and Alex, $5, then I'll give that to you.
Yeah, okay, cool. See, it all works itself out. Well, Trisha, again, thank you so much for coming. Super appreciate it. Again, find her. You can also contact her if you have questions outside of that.